Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, in the name of Allah, the Compassionate, the Most Merciful. To all our viewers out there, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu, and thank you for joining us again in The Rational, the intersection of faith and reason, where our guest is Dr. Ja'far Sheikh Idris. Dr. Ja'far, thank you for being with us again. And I would have to tell you that I am enthusiastically looking forward to this episode because of what we're talking about and some of the statements that were made in the last time we were here. We're speaking about democracy and what is the Islamic view with regard to democracy.
Yes.
And you were talking about democracy being a term with no content. And the last statement you made was, let us not confuse democracy with morality, fairness, or justice.
Yes, democratic decision, and I repeat, democratic decisions need not be moral or fair, because a democratic decision is a decision that is made according to the democratic procedure, irrespective of the result. You tell the people, to the people, you are sovereign. So legislative sovereignty belongs to you. So you decide what you want. You put them in place of the creator, as I said. But we know that the creator does not make any unfair decisions. But we cannot be sure that a majority of people does not make fair decisions.
Sheikh, I think you're also giving this the example of the colonial powers, Europeans, when they went to African parts of Asia. It was done democratically from within. But how that impacted the people of Africa or Asia was not necessarily moral, nor fair, nor just, even though the process itself was democratic.
You are now saying that because it was democratically made, it was, in their view, fair. مش كده؟
Sure.
Yeah. No, because it can be democratic but not fair.
To others.
Huh?
To the people that receive.
No, the decision itself may not be fair. Some people might say, even who vote for the decision, I know that this is unfair, but this is what we should do. This is in our interest. Yeah. I don't think that anyone thought that enslaving innocent people in Africa is something that is good. I don't know, perhaps some people did. And by the way, it is written, you know, Zakaria, what is his name? Farid Zakaria, in his book Freedom, the future of liberal democracy or something. He said something interesting.
Farid Zakaria is a CNN. Was he CNN or?
No. He's I don't know. He's American of origin, of Indian origin.
Newsweek. He writes for Newsweek as well as he is
he's
political
considered
analyst.
No, he's considered to be one of the great American thinkers now. He is against what they call populism. And populism, in fact, is the true democracy. He says that the liberation, the movement of liberating the slaves, was done just by force. If it was left to the people, I don't know, certain states, or the majority of them said that they wanted to keep their slaves. But it was the decision to liberate slaves was done undemocratically. It was not the choice of the majority of the people. So we have to make this distinction. Many, as I said, theoreticians of democracy, like, for example, Huntington, says that a government, that's something else also, a government, of course I'm not repeating his words, just the meaning. A government can be elected democratically. No doubt about its being elected democratically, but that doesn't mean that it will not be corrupt. A government can be elected democratically, but it can be corrupt. I said to myself, suppose someone said, even a government that claims to be Islamic can also be corrupt. And I have to say yes. But in this case, I can tell you that this is not Islamic. If it is immoral, then it cannot be Islamic, because these are the Islamic standards. But if it is elected democratically and it makes unfair decisions, I cannot say that its decisions are not democratic. This is the difference between the two.
And I see that last time you gave the example in France where women were prohibited from wearing the Islamic dress, the scarf, and you referred to it and you said that was a democratic decision.
Now, when I have recently been in the United Kingdom, and the BBC said that it asked so many people, what do they call this? Polls about niqab, covering of the face. And the majority of the people said women who wear the niqab should not be allowed to appear in public places, like airports and so on. Mm-hmm. Is that a fair decision? No, it is not. But perhaps if this sample is a good sample of the British people, then it might be the decision of the majority. So we should remember that always, that these human beings are put in the place of their Creator, and they are made sovereign. The legislative, they are sovereign as far as legislation is concerned. So they make legislation according to their own views, according to the extent of knowledge they have, and so on.
Which means that, of course, it will be changing from time to time. And like you said,
of course, yes.
It does not necessarily mean that it is fair, moral, or anything like that. But Sheikh, you're talking about democracy in theory at this point.
Yes.
What we see is that democracy in practice seems to work, not necessarily perfectly, but it seems to work for the people who have adopted this type of
the fact that it works does not mean that it is good. There are non-democratic countries like China, and it is working. The country is developing very well. It's competing now with the United States, and I think that the country that the United States now feel most is China, and China is definitely not democratic.
But nevertheless, Sheikh, people would argue that the way the people in the US or in any other democratic country are ruled is much better than the way the people in China are ruled, even though they may be prospering economically.
Yes, you know, better in what way?
At least the fact that they are able to express their opinions, the fact that they are openly able to criticize the people who are ruling them.
Okay. This is one of this is an example of something that is practiced in the countries that are called democratic, but it is not peculiar to democracy. You can have an Islamic state where people have this freedom of expression, and that state would not be democratic in the sense that it is rule of the people. And we know from the history of Islam that so many groups existed, and they had some weird views, but they were not prohibited from expressing those views. And even in a democracy, because democracy is very much related with, as it is practiced, very much related with capitalism, freedom of expression is not to everyone. You write to a newspaper, they don't publish your opinion. Now people are benefiting from the internet. But freedom of expression has come to be related to either wealth or power or so. I'm not saying that there is no freedom of expression. There is. And freedom of expression is a good thing. But I am saying that is not something that is peculiar to democracy in the sense of rule of the people. This is what these people chose for themselves. They could have said there is no freedom of expression, or that freedom of expression is limited to this, by a democratic decision. They could have passed a decision saying that no one less than 30 years should write anything in any paper or express. They could have said this, and the decision can be democratic. So the fact that people in the United States or Western Europe also chose certain things and made them part of the political system does not mean that everything they chose is required by democracy or is peculiar to democracy, and it cannot be in any other system.
Sheikh, when we come back, I have a question to ask you, and that is, we are so very fascinated by the accomplishments of these democratic states. And the fear is that when we argue against democracy, it's almost that we're saying that what is the alternative that we are proposing in exchange of democracy? So this will be our question when we come back. So please stay tuned, and we will be back shortly, inshallah.
Learn Arabic.
As everyone knows, today Arabic is considered as very important, very significant language. How can we produce the sound, the state of voicing, place of articulation, the manner of articulation? So in Arabic, the words which are written are pronounced.
We will learn how to write and pronounce Arabic letters correctly in depth. Explanation via board and presentation with many other important factors.
And we have today more than 300 million people speak Arabic language. Not only in the Middle East, but you can find a lot of people speak Arabic language in Asia, Europe, North America, and in South America.
What are you waiting for? Grab your notebook and pencil and stay tuned for Learn Arabic at Huda TV.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu, and thank you for joining us back again in The Rationale, the intersection of faith and reason, where we are talking with our guest, Dr. Ja'far Sheikh Idris. And Dr. Ja'far, before the break, we said that if we're so critical of democracy, what are we proposing at that point?
I mean, these are two separate issues, but in fact the criticism helps us to make a better choice. Because if we just follow whatever the West calls democracy and follow this blindly, then we will not be able to choose the system that suits us. I want us to do what, say, the founding fathers of American Constitution did. These people met and did not say that we want to be like Athens, or we want to be democratic, or we want to be like this or that. They said, this is our country, these are our ideas, these are our values, so let us write a constitution that expresses this. And I want people to be also as free thinkers as these people were. You come and say, these are our Islamic values, this is our history, this is our experience, this is the experience of contemporary countries. There are many things that are good in democracy, why not borrow them? How can we think of institutions that express our Islamic values, and so on? So the criticism helps us a lot. If you don't criticize, we will be following blindly, I think.
Okay. And now the idea is, let us criticize so that we are able to come up with something that is better,
Yes,
and would better suit us.
and perhaps might be better even for them. Even for them, we might tell them that we have something that is better for you.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want people, and I suffered from this. Every time I criticize democracy, people think that the only alternative is dictatorship. I'm saying no. For example, many people think that rule of law is peculiar to democracy. I say no. This is part and parcel of the Islamic religion.
Mm.
You cannot have an Islamic government that does not abide by rule of law. And is there any example better for the rule of law than the Prophet ﷺ saying that even if his own daughter steals, he will punish her, cut off her hand? This is his own daughter. This is the rule of law. You remember that magnificent statement of Umar in the letter that he wrote to Abu Musa al-Ash'ari. And he did not only tell him to be fair and apply the same judgment regarding different people. He told him that he must be fair if there are two people. He must be fair, he said, even in the expression of his face. He must not frown at one and smile to the other. This is rule of law. Second, the second matter that people like in democracy is that you choose your own rulers. This is true. It is a good thing, and again, it is part of the Islamic principles of government. What is good also about democracy is that people are consulted. They are asked to express their views. Mm-hmm. Again, this is what we mean by shura, because shura is consultation. In fact, some people now in the United States are saying that democracy cannot be complete without consultation. And they give very interesting examples. They tell you, collect about 100 persons and ask them to vote on a certain matter. The vote, say, will be 60 with, 40 against. Then you tell them, please discuss this matter. And they listen to each other. And they vote again. The vote will definitely change. So this is the value of consultation. And they are thinking, many of them now are thinking of ways of making people consult each other. Because in a vast country with 300 million people, how can people consult on them? But they say that now there are these new means of technology, communication, and so perhaps we can do this. So they are always thinking of developing, improving what they think are means of achieving this democratic rule. Why can't we do the same thing?
Sheikh, see, sometimes the problem might be is that they already have a system that is going well for them.
Okay.
On our part, there is really not that system where would allow us to say, and I'm not saying that we shouldn't be critical. I think we should. But the idea is, where does that leave us practically speaking?
Why don't we start? I mean, 200 years ago, the Americans didn't have any system. Why don't we start? Okay. I think we should encourage people to do this. The problem now with people in the Islamic world is they are just aping the West, and this will not lead them anywhere. If you do not become original, if you do not think for yourself, then you will never make any progress at all. And mind you, my criticism of democracy as a theory is still valid. I don't think that what is practiced in the United States or Europe, whether you approve of it or you are against it, I don't think that this is democracy according to the theory. It is not democracy, because democracy, according to the theory, and it is a theory, and again, this is not just that one I'm saying, many of them said the same thing. This is a theory that cannot be practiced at all. It is a theory. And therefore, they should have given this another name. They should have called it rule of the representatives or rule of this or that, and not call it rule of the people, because this is now used just as propaganda. You go to people who are ruled by a dictator and so on, and then you tell them, you will be the rulers, not just this dictator. And they will never be the rulers. They will never be the rulers. They will at most be given a chance to express their views, to make demonstrations, to have political parties and so on, but they will not be the rulers.
Sheikh, you speak about freedom of expression and how that can be adapted Islamically as well. Now, in democracy, you can be critical of anybody and anything, with absolutely no limitations. Now, whether you get your voice heard or not.
No, it is not true without any limitations. It is not true. You have freedom of expression within the law. Isn't that so?
It is, so long that... And
suppose you insulted someone, that is freedom of expression. Suppose I said someone is a thief or so on, then he can sue me.
Sure he can, and the idea is to be responsible with what you say, and there is a difference between insults and...
Yes, the same thing in Islam. You have freedom of expression within the law. If you violate the law, then you will be punished.
Should there be a fear that in democracy you can even be critical of the system itself?
Yes, you can be in democracy.
Okay.
But what is the use of that? Yes, you can be. And you can't say that I don't believe in democracy. I think that we should have something better than this. I don't think you can say that in Islam. I don't think. But why should that be better? But if their democracy is not a good system, then it is good to allow people to criticize it and say we want an alternative. Sure. And that doesn't mean that this is good if you apply to any other system.
Sheikh, I like the optimism that you bring into this, and that is you're saying that there is really a better way. We do acknowledge the goodness of what we see, but we do believe that we are capable of producing something.
I think we are being lazy. We are being blind followers, and that is what I don't like at all. Strangely enough now, as I told you, most of what I said, in fact, I got from Western thinkers. And now people in the West criticize democracy more than we criticize it in the Muslim world. And I think it is because of this criticism that they can improve their system. But if you don't criticize and you think that the only alternative for the bad thing you have in your country is to bring something from the West and impose it on a place that might not be suitable for it. For example, I don't think that, for example, political parties per se are something good and it should be everywhere. I don't think that elections in the Western way is something that should be adopted by every people everywhere. Because one of the important things for a political system is stability. If political parties or elections are to make the country unstable, then we should set some limits on them. But the main good principles of government that are in democracy should not be tampered with, because they are, in fact, Islamic principles
and values.
Yes.
Okay. Sheikh, thank you for your fairness in assessing of this issue. And I'm very sure that we've been provoked by some of what you have said, where, like you said, you might have provoked people in believing that, or at least initially before you clarified it further, that when you are critical of democracy, the alternative is not dictatorship.
No.
You're saying that let us get something better than what they have out there. And with this, we come to the conclusion to this part of our program. We thank you for being with us today, and we would hope that you join us next time as well in the rationale, the intersection of faith and reason. Until then, we say so long, and Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.